back to Reclaiming America. My name's Bill. My partner Dan is here. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Bill. How is Bill?
We're good. And our other partner, Greta, is still off exploring Europe and coming up with all kinds of great stories that we could use when she gets back. But she is missed and is thought of often.
And I'm jealous because she's doing something that little vacation that I would one day will do, but she got.
Yeah, but a man of your means, you would have your own private jet to fly over anyway. It wouldn't make a difference.
Well, I got to make sure that I do my contribution to global warming like Taylor Swift does. Did you see that real quick?
Yeah.
They tracked her flights for the past year, 200 and something flights, and she's talking about global warming. Way to go there, Taylor.
Well, throw in the rest of them. They spent more on flying their planes than any 100 airplanes have done, any 100 have done anywhere for the time being. But anyway, let's get into something much more important.
And more serious for
Yes, we need to talk about what's going on the college campuses, i.e. their reaction to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, or their lack of brain power to deal with the issue. Because for all these bright people, if brains were dynamite, they couldn't blow their noses at this particular point. They're just ridiculous. For Palestine, it's okay to kill people, it's okay to rape people, it's okay to maim people, it's okay to cut their heads off because they deserve it, especially if they're Jewish.
I saw one this week because we've talked about the baby in the oven, that right. One, and somebody asked a 20, I'll call it 20 something. She was a college kid, so I'm going to say young 20s girl about that, and she said it was perfectly justified.
Yeah.
After all of the abuse that the Palestinians have taken from Israel and the Jewish people, never mind that the Arab people across all of the Middle East do the same viewpoint on the Palestinians that Israel does, but she said that baby deserved it, and everything that happened on October 7th was legitimate. And I just sat there and go, is she really that delusional? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
and she's not alone.
That's what we bred. By letting these universities be taken over by the liberal factions that are teaching only one way of thought, and actually they're not teaching thinking. They're teaching because critical thinking is out in far as
they have no ability to even question any of this. It's again, I've been watching a lot of stuff, and admittedly, it's on YouTube, and you can't trust everything. But a lot of them are reputable sources. Even some news agencies are going out and saying to these kids, "What are you actually protesting?" "Oh, I don't know. I just thought I'd be joining a protest." Or
not as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
Too.
Or do you understand what river to the sea means? Well, yeah, it means a free Palestine between the river and the sea. And I'm like, they have no idea that means Israel. So then to the person's credit that was doing that interview, and I'm paraphrasing what they said, but essentially they said, you do realize that means the Jewish people will be eradicated. Oh, that would never happen. Really?
In their world.
Do you need to be reminded what happened roughly 80 years ago when they said, oh, that would never happen in Europe?
Well, I would bet that some of them are actually Holocaust deniers.
Oh, fair point. Absolutely. And it's sad, and it also does make me angry. And I've talked about it before. Freely admit, I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. I grew up with dear friends whose parents on both sides were Holocaust survivors. I am jaded by that, if you want to call it that way. I am influenced by that, whatever verbiage you want to use. But even I can separate myself and go, if it was the other way around and they were calling for the eradication of the Palestinian people, which Israel has never said, not even once.
No.
I would be opposed to Israel then, but that's not what Israel's saying.
And as a matter of fact, Israel is sending in humanitarian aid, which is against their own benefit, exactly, because it's being rerouted to the Hamas people, and we're in fact feeding the enemy, their enemy, but they're doing it.
Where does this go, though, Bill? I mean,
Egypt. It depends on what you listen to. If you listen to Wink and Blink and Nod, or a presidential leadership operation, we're going to have a ceasefire and it's all going to go good and
Yeah.
Israel's going to get all their people back and everything's going to be la 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 in this land. Now, personally, and I hope this is not true, but personally believe most of those hostages don't exist anymore. I think they're dead.
Yeah, I think they've got a couple that they're keeping alive to show pony, which they did, a couple of them. But again, that goes to somebody asked someone on. They went on a college campus. I want to say it was UNC, but don't hold me to that. And said to them, "Well, what about the hostages? There's American hostages. They're not even Israeli." Well, they're part of the problem, so it's justified. And I'm sitting there going, "You're really going to support kidnapping of American citizens?" Okay. How about you? If you agree with that, fine. I will grant you you're entitled to that belief. Why don't you go substitute yourself for that hostage? They never, that's the question they didn't ask and should have. Okay, if you truly believe that, then you go over, let that person be freed, and you take their place. I
Yeah, but
guarantee you they wouldn't have taken that up.
well, they don't deserve that because, I think the best way that typifies what we're talking about with these kids is what you saw when the woman came out of Colombia with her demands.
Oh,
Well,
God.
we need food, we need water, and we have a meal plan, so we're entitled to being fed. My first reaction to that, and I didn't hear anybody say it, uh, you're in a building in the United States. I can't think of anyone in the United States that doesn't have running water, sinks in, at least in the bathroom you can get a drink from. I'm not even going to talk about they drinking out of the toilet, but they're there. The water is there. But I'm sure that the entitled ones, they would like the bottled Desante. They can't drink
Oh,
everyday
you,
water.
I was
Yeah,
just about to say tap water bill. Come on, no,
yeah.
these
They,
are
it says they're entitled. So even though they broke into a building, they barricaded it, they held hostages of the janitorial staff for a number of hours. They've destroyed property in the building, broke windows and furniture. They're entitled to be
have
fed.
accosted fellow students that happen to be Jewish.
That's the truth. Forgot that one.
You know,
But be fed because they have a meal plan.
so I've never been to Columbia. Have you ever been there to the
Yes, they're
university?
not kidding.
So I don't know that campus at all, but it's it's sitting in basically New York City, greater
It's
metro.
a city campus. It's not much
It's
different
not
than,
huge, right?
no, it's just,
So
you know,
they're
it's
in effect. This is the reason I'm
there.
bringing that up. Is they are in effect shutting down the entire university then by doing what they're doing,
There's no doubt about it.
and the university's letting them. This is where I want to go with it. Is where is the head of the university, and why aren't they stepping up? No, they want to pass it off to the governor, right, or the mayor or whomever. They don't want to be the one to go. We support your right to protest, which I do. But taking over a building, blocking roads, no, that's not protesting. Holding people against their will, that's not protesting.
It's beyond civil disobedience.
It is. But yet the universities aren't really doing anything. And it's not, I'm saying Columbia, but you're seeing it across many of them.
Most of them agree with it.
They do. And that's the point, right? Is they are it is so ingrained to them to follow the wave, right? Because I don't know if you saw this one, but Florida published a few mugshots of people with their various colored hairs, and they linked four of them back to Soros. They're
Oh,
Soros-funded people running, and they are leaders They were leaders down in Florida. They got arrested. So anyone who does not realize that there's more going on here than a bunch of college kids that suddenly decided to protest. This is well organized, and you've talked about this before. You're seeing the same signs everywhere, the same tents everywhere, all of it.
printed. They're not something that you took a blank thing and wrote on with a pen to make it work. No, these are printed, multicolored, and they have, it's all pre-programmed. What was interesting is in a number of these places, I think the first 30 people arrested in Colombia were not students. They were
Right.
outside activators.
Yeah, and that's what they were finding in Florida is they were not students, but they were on the campus acting like they were, leading the charge. And they were Soros-funded people. Now, am I saying every one of them is Soros-funded? No, I'm not. But it doesn't take a lot two or three is all it takes on a campus to get people riled up. And that's why I say this is well organized, well planned. I think it's going to blow up in their face. Um, the average people, they're not happy about this. And you see kids who are just trying to get an education at college are now being denied that opportunity. Kids who spent, in many cases, multiple six figures to get a degree are not going to be able to now walk across the stage, which to me would be no big deal, but I would understand where, if you spend all that money and time and effort and all that, it's an honor to walk across the stage. They're not going to be denied that. And to what end? Is preventing a graduation from happening going to do a damn thing? No, it's not.
Well, what's going to affect people, and here's my problem. These kids don't realize that in many cases they're killing themselves in the job market.
Well, that's why they all wear masks, so they can't be seen.
Except if they're arrested, sooner or later it's going to come out. You know,
And
yeah,
this is where I wanted to go next is what do we want to do with these students? And that's the first thing I think should be done. If they are arrested, their mugshots should be publicly posted everywhere.
and charges should not be dismissed. They
Nope.
should go the distance, even if it's just trespassing. But by the way, I want you to consider the word just trespassing, like I just said, because there was a woman in January 6th. All she was doing was trespassing, and she was shot dead.
Yeah, it's funny
So
how they don't want to apply the rules to them that they've been applying to everybody else.
it seemed to me that, at least with the police in D.C., trespassing is a lethal crime.
Well, the argument that you'll always hear from the left is, oh, sure, you can have your free speech, but it doesn't absolve you from consequences. Well, that should work in reverse. If these kids want to protest and do what they're doing, fine. Face the consequences of it. If you get arrested, your mugshot's publicly posted. If you are caught doing damages, you pay the fines. I'm going to even go a step further. Maybe more so for public schools than private, but any taxpayer funded scholarships should be revoked. They should lose
And
their scholarships.
I think it was Louisiana that said they were going to do that.
I think it should be. We're in North Carolina. A big protest is happening at UNC. That is a state school. Who funds that school, Bill?
We do.
We do. So where is Governor Useless? Where's his filing of whatever thing he wants to file to say, yep, we're pulling all the scholarships? If you're caught and you're arrested and charged and convicted, I'll even grant that they got to be convicted, which could be nothing more than a fine, they lose their scholarship. You want to protest, that's fine. But your argument to us for decades has been you have free speech, but you're not free from any consequences. Play the same game.
Now, here's where you get us in trouble, by the way, just to prepare
Uh-oh.
you.
What else is new?
The founder and CEO of the telehealth and online pharmacy called HIMSS, HIMS, was on social media just this week, encouraging the anti-Israeli protesters on college campuses to continue what they're doing and let them know that companies like them will be eager to hire them. You know what? My reaction, if you deal with this CEO of telehealth and HIMSS, you don't deal with them anymore. Boycott the man. That's where I'm going to get in trouble. That word.
Oh, the word boycott?
Yes.
Yeah, we should be all right with that one. But, we'll get mocked for calling for boycotts. How's Bud Light doing is all I'm going to say. And a few others I can think of. But, again, and I've said this, 3 weeks in a row now, I have no problem with them exercising their First Amendment right to voice their opposition. No issue with it. But that's not what they're doing anymore. There's violence going on. UCLA, or was it USC? One of the LA schools, actual attacks and fighting going on.
And what about the UCLA school that actually had a Jewish entry door?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they were giving out bans and they wouldn't give it to the Jewish people to get access to things like that. This does not sound a whole lot different than was going on in the late 30s in Germany. I hate to say it.
I'm just saying, when's Crystal not going to happen in the U.S.? Just going to say it. Because People may say that's a ludicrous statement to make. You're crazy. Are we really that far from it? No, we're not. I wasn't alive in the 1930s. Bill was a middle-aged man at that
Either
point.
way,
But
but
I had to get the shot in there. Uh, but you look at that rhetoric, and I've actually gone and looked at what a certain Dr. G was saying back then. You know who I mean.
yeah,
Um, it ain't that far removed from what they're saying now. And these kids are so blinded, I guess. I don't even know the right word to use at this point. Indoctrinated, maybe better word.
brainwashed.
Brainwashed. They, like you said earlier, critical thinking is gone. And here's the thing that none of them are realizing is if this powder keg blows up, guess who's going over there? It ain't you and me, Bill.
Oh, no. But you know what I've always said? If this goes up, the draft board needs to hold their draft meetings at the Canadian border and catch them as they're coming across,
Yeah, but
because that's
Canada ain't going to let him in.
Trudeau will take anybody. You've heard him say
Yeah,
that.
but he's on the way out. He is not long for the prime ministership up there.
For
Uh,
the Canadians, I hope so.
yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, it's a whole other topic. But there's a lot of talk that there's going to be an election soon, and he's going to get whomped like 90-10. I mean, it's that bad. But anyway, setting that aside, I just this whole scenario to me, it just it speaks to where we are as a country at this point. That you have and it's a relatively minor faction. I mean, the news is making it seem like there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of students doing it. There's not. There really isn't. It's a few hundred, maybe 1,000 on a particular university.
And if
Uh,
you example of that, when they took the police a half hour this morning, clear out one whole area of people, had to wake them up and move them. That's not a lot of people.
it's not.
30
Uh,
minutes later, they were all out of their tents and some assembled in another corner of the
right.
place.
But they make sure they have the right camera angles to make it look like it's a huge crowd. They do all this stuff, trying to make it like this is the media doing it, trying to make it like it's this huge thing. But I don't know what Columbia University's enrollment is. I know UNC's is huge. I know USC, UCLA, whatever one it was out there, is huge. And you have a few hundred students. But they're the ones speaking for the whole university. And they're making it appear that way, and other people are seeing this as a huge movement, when in reality, it's a relatively small faction, but they are very vocal and they are influential.
Now, there's a couple of things I would suggest to solve some of these issues too. I mean, for example, Columbia, 40,000 students, round
Okay.
figure,
Okay.
okay? Which 14,000 students are there on visas. Now, my solution to that is you can protest, but the minute you broke a law, like kidnapping somebody, breaking into a building, destroying property, your visa is revoked and you go home.
Except Biden would never do that.
But there's a solution.
It is a great solution. I wholeheartedly agree with it. Like I said earlier, revoke any and all scholarships that are publicly funded. If I were on the university, it was a private university. I went to a private university, right? If I was getting a scholarship from the school, which I did, and I was out protesting, I would legitimately say that they have a right as a private school to say, you damaged school property, you've now lost your scholarship. Public schools, all right, God knows how much money is going to have to go back into rebuilding these places. Well,
Well, yeah,
we're going to take your scholarship money to do that, to pay for it.
yeah, but your scholarships usually have some sort of phrase in there that you have to maintain not only a grade point average, but you have to maintain something that doesn't bring embarrassment or to either yourself or to the
Right.
university.
So they have an out. The problem is the administrators of the university are gutless. They're not going to.
Well,
They agree with it, like you said earlier. The thing is, though, this is going to backfire. It already is backfiring on them. You know, it's getting the average person's eyes wide open on what's going on. And look, if they, you know, you can think whatever you want about that conflict, whatever side you're on. I'm on one side of the fence, they're on the other. But when you sit there and publicly state that you're okay with throwing a live human being, a baby, in an oven and cooking it, you've lost all credibility and respect. Sorry.
That baby deserved it.
And say the baby deserved it. Yeah. That's the lunacy of that. It's it just reeks of the inhumanity that must be what makes up these people.
Yeah, but we've got to, our people need to come back and just tell people this is not acceptable and force this minority, because there's always been a fringe minority out there, but they've never been in charge. And they are now.
I would say they are right now.
And we need to take back the country, and we need to stay and put some sanity back in here and put some limits on these people, because the one thing that will stop them from doing anything is any kind of displeasure to themselves, any kind of uncomfortableness. You took away my desante. I have to sleep. What do you mean I have to pay for this? I mean, what do you mean I'm not entitled to eat?
Yeah, most of the ones doing the protesting are rich white liberals trying to
Yep.
tell everybody else how to think and feel.
That woman that made that statement was working on her doctorate as in a PhD in psychology. Could you want to go to her office for any reason?
Yeah.
She's crazy. People who came in to see her.
Well, my argument has always been PhDs are nothing more than professional students. That PhD to me means meaningless. Always has been. Who cares? All right, so you went to school a few extra years. Doesn't make you a better person than me. But
That's true.
they think that they're superior. Well, you have to call me doctor. No, I don't. I really
Yeah.
don't. I mean, I might as a sign of respect if you're a decent human being. Sure. Right? I know I worked for a school district. The superintendent had a doctorate. He went by doctor, I won't say his name. I had no problem calling him doctor because I respected the hell out of the man. But that one you're talking about, I wouldn't even give her even the slightest bit of respect for it.
And then the other side of that coin is the ones that use their doctorate and they're not medical doctors, but they pass themselves off for the same. For
Jill
example,
Biden. Oh, sorry, had a little catch in my throat there.
Dr. Jill.
Oh,
Everything
Jill
to
Biden.
do-
Oh, sorry. It keeps coming up. I got to hold it back. On that note, my friend, guess what? It's break time. We went 20 minutes like that. So let's step aside, and we will be back in a couple of minutes on Reclaiming America.
Welcome back, everybody, to Reclaiming America. We've paid a few bills. We've had some great conversation, and now we're going to continue bringing up the things that most people don't know about that they need to address. For example,
You got a good one.
uh, we all remember the hassle that was when they passed that $95 billion bill that would help Ukraine and it helped Israel.
By the way, who was the leaders in the House that passed that bill?
Uh,
Which party was that?
I believe it was some Republicans and Democrats got
The
together.
party of fiscal restraint, is that the one that's in charge right now? Just asking. Go ahead.
Bipartisan basis, I believe it was. Anyway, after looking at the bill, people have discovered that part of that bill sets up between 3 and 4 billion, not quite $4 billion, of money to set up U.S. asylum centers in 2 foreign countries, one of them being Turkey. And what you have to then, you can go there as a citizen from one of these other countries, a Palestinian or whatever else, and you can claim that you're being, you need asylum for whatever reason, political purposes. They will grant it to you. They will put you on a plane. They will fly you to the United States. They will give you your green card because now you're legal. And somewhere down the road, that green card can be translated into citizenship and voting rights. But of course, we're going to cut down on people crossing the border because we're going to fly them in. Your reaction, sir?
Well, first of all, did they bother to read the bill before they voted on it?
No, the sad part is on the very next day, a number of congressmen were on various shows and they all admitted They didn't know that was in the bill.
Oh, oh. How is it they didn't know? Now,
My,
you know as well as I do, they don't actually read any of the bills. They have staffers that do that for them. But apparently, even the staffers aren't even bothering to read them at this point.
or the staffers agree.
Or the staffers went, "Yeah, I'm okay with that." You know, I mean, again, let's call it 4 billion, whatever the exact number was. Turkey of all places. Why Turkey? I mean, is there that many people in Turkey that are trying to escape?
No,
You've
but
been there. I've never been there, but
they would allow some of the people from their borders who have been battling with Turkey to come in and get their
well, that's
citizenship.
where that was going to be my next question. Is how does Turkey feel about being set up as an asylum center to invite people from Palestine, let's say, in? I mean,
Well, there's a second center somewhere in the Arab world, and I'm not sure where it is. My swag, which is a scientific wild ass guess, might be Egypt, but and I don't know that for a fact,
yeah, I have no idea, but
or even Jordan.
what
But
again? Did we even talk to Turkey about this?
oh, I'm sure it's been arranged, and I'm sure part of that $1 billion is maybe a $50 million to be or more equipment that you're going to get, something that allows it to happen for their benefit.
Yeah,
But again,
it won't end
not
up in anybody's pocket, though, Bill. No, 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 no.
sorry,
None of it will end up in anyone's pocket.
never, because that would be illegal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Zelensky's not living on spam and powdered eggs like some of his citizens are. It just, again, it speaks to where we are with our government that they even admit they were clueless. How many times have they gone back and said that? Oh, I didn't know it was in the bill. We're past the point now where they can say that. All right,
Well,
well past it.
the other criticism I have to share against the Republican Party on that would be they had an agreement within their staff that nothing would happen. They would get 3 days to read a bill,
Yeah,
and it didn't happen either.
that didn't happen. That's
Well,
why. That's why I said when this all went down, they're feckless, weak, worthless. And I'm sorry, I'm more vocal about it than you, but why in hell would I vote for a Republican now? They're no different. I'm sorry, it's a uniparty. I know you don't agree with me, and that's fine, but come on. I mean, I
I,
gave Johnson every chance to do the right thing.
I will defend to the death your right to be wrong.
Well, as I've said multiple times, the fact that I'm on the side of MTG makes me want to vomit, to be honest with you. But I agree with her completely in this case, right? Um,
Look, let me put this in a different way. Even a clock is right twice a day that's broken.
yeah, unfortunately, they can't even manage that, Bill. Come on.
Well, you clock, so even MTG could possibly be right twice.
I'm at the point now where MTG might be the better speaker. That's saying. Now, talk about lunacy. Yeah, I know. Your look on your face says it all, but at least we know where she stands. We don't have a person standing up there going, "We are the party of the people. We're conservatives. We're going to blah, 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 blah." And then when it comes time to put pencil to paper, they're Democrats. You
Well,
know, MTG is a lunatic. I will point blank say it. But at least she's honest. I'll give her that. I don't agree with 99% of what she says, but I'll back her simply because she's honest. You may argue she's too stupid to lie. Some have. But come on. I mean, you have to admit, I gave Johnson every chance.
you did give him a reasonable amount of chances.
And he has blown it every time.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, which I have some concern about, is though I do not support removing him at this point because the election's too important. The 2024 November election and the consequences could be dire. However, the fact that the Democrats have come forward and said they will save his speakership by supporting a motion to table her motion so that it will never come up, gives me concerns.
What does that tell you, Bill?
It gives me some concerns.
Here's the argument I'll make in counter to yours, which is leaving him as Speaker, I honestly believe is going to cost the Republican Party the House. Because there's no way in hell I would vote Republican for a House member now. Why? The only argument that I get from Republicans, present company included, I might add, is we're not them. That's the only argument you have. We're not them. I don't care anymore. You are them. You're the exact same thing as them. I don't mean you personally, Bill.
The
But
consequences of giving them carte blanche.
we already have given them carte blanche. They can do whatever they want.
Let me, there's another line I like to use when we discuss this, because I agree that there are a number of Republicans up there that should be replaced, but that's up to their local districts.
216 that I can come up with.
But the Republican that votes with you 50% of the time is better off than getting a Democrat who's going to vote against you 100% of the time.
Why?
That's an obvious answer, because
No, it's not. Because
from this guy or this gal, but you'll get something from these other people. And yes, should they be replaced? Probably, but that's got to happen when the people make decisions in primary.
it's also got to happen in the party, where the party's going to go, yeah, we're going to primary this person. You know as well as I do that the party backs certain people and they fund them.
The party does not back those people. Where the money is coming from, no, it's not the party. It is the funding that comes from one or two big places. Either some private donors that do that, and they have lists of things they want, and let's be honest, they do. Or you have the leader of the House or the leader of the Senate, which has a massive pot of money, which has nothing to do with the party, and they decide who gets the money. And if you don't play ball with them, you may not get a dime to support yourself, and in a primary, they may support somebody against you. But that's not the party.
And yet the Democrats do exactly that. So in theory, you're saying the Democrats are the only ones that are cheating. Come on, Bill. Come on. You think that they don't? I mean, Rona, whatever the hell her name was.
McDaniel?
You think she wasn't playing games? But I'm not saying they're overtly doing it, but come on, behind the scenes, who's kidding who, right? You look at some of these people that are in there, and you go, you claim to be a conservative party, yet they're anything but.
But again, what happens? You have people right now like Johnson and right now like McConnell, who control literally hundreds to tens of millions of dollars. And they decide where that money is being dispersed through the congressional funds that they control, not the party. Now, there's a problem with that, because very, very often, example, McConnell will not support anybody with a conservative run on it. Yet they have to pay into this fund if they're going to want any kind of job of any meaning to them and their constituents. So, it's a double-edged sword on that thing. But the people need to vote in people that will change that. The party does not choose. As much as I will tell you this, we just finished the primary. In fact, we still have one still going on for a couple of positions. Not everybody I supported won. There were some I was not happy with that they won the election, but you know what? They will be better long-term than putting the Democrat who was on the other side further to the left than this maybe center or left center Republican, leftist Republican. But there are times I'm going to want to just use bad words at them because I can't curse on the air.
I can't.
However, there are going to be times when I'm going to be very happy they finally did the right thing sometimes. But
the problem is when you vote for them because they do the job half the time, you're suborning what they're doing. Instead of saying, no, you're not getting my vote. This is why I won't vote for him. If you're only doing it 50% of the time, I have no reason to vote for you. You got to. Now, I'm not saying it's got to be 100, Bill. I'm not saying that. You use 70%, I'll throw it 80 to 90, right? But if your entire party's platform is conservatism, if you're as an individual candidate, and it's almost universal within the party, we're conservatives. We're for family. We're for this, that, and everything else. They don't stand behind a single thing they say they do. The Democrats, they're insane. I will tell you that, and you know it. But they stand behind every single thing that they put out there, like
But
lockstep.
there's a difference in party because in the Democratic Party, everyone's in little boxes. I am pro-abortion. That's all I care about. Okay. I am pro-immigration. That's all I care about. I am pro-government spending and that's all I care about.
Mm-hmm.
And their attitude is, if you support what I care about, I'll support what you care about. You get into the party, the Republican Party. Again, I've said this too many times. It's like trying to herd feral cats.
Oh, I understand that, Bill. But publicly, they say one thing. Privately, they're doing what you're talking about. You know, and people like me are looking at it going, then why should I bother voting for you? If you can't herd yourselves and come together and say, you know what, I may not agree with your position on X. However, for the benefit of the party, for the benefit of the people and what the party stands for the people, I will support it. Instead, it's exactly what you're saying. I agree with you. They all go off in their little things, right? In the meantime, they get nothing done and haven't for 45, 50 years now. And look where we are.
But again, I've said this before. Do not rain on the regional and statewide because the federal is not doing what it needs to be doing right. Because the party is very effective in most states and in most counties, in our state, for example. Do the federal area need a little bit of work? They might need
a little bit.
They might need to bring that truck in for a little body overhaul.
Wow, are you CYAing right now, baby? I agree with you, by the way, at the state and local level. For the majority of them, they do a very good job, right? There are exceptions. But, you know, and I'll throw a beautiful one out. The New York State Republican Party, which is laughable at how feckless and weak. They are the standard that now Congress has become. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I'm talking federal for the most part. But
what's different there is in New York State, there are actually two minor parties that take a lot of people. You've got the Liberal Party, you've got the Conservative Party. So
you also have the Green Party has a lot of power, relatively speaking, in New York.
You have the Conservatives and the Republicans sitting down and saying, okay, let's see who we can support at each other's tickets. And very, very often you will see the Conservatives getting, okay, we really need this position as a judgeship, for example, or as a local politician. If you will support that, we will then support these other candidates at different levels. And that's what happens. But that's what needs to happen right now. But please remember, the one advantage to the party is it's a big tent. They're not all the same people in the Big Tent. If that was the case, the Democrats would really only need to elect one person and let that one person make all the decisions, because that's basically
that's what they have done. It's called Chuck Schumer in the Senate and Hakeem Jeffries in.
Speaking of Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and going back to our previous discussion, notice how there are crickets popping off when what's going on in the cities and what's going on in Israel. He's absolutely silent.
And he has never met a microphone that he didn't like,
Oh, if those was Batman, he would come up every week and just do an announcement on the microphones, as inane as it was. But he would find something he got a chance to go up there and talk to get his face.
Every single chance he gets. But, to kind of put a bow on this whole thing, I will end my argument with this, which is to say, we're heading into an election. They had the chance, they being the Republican Party, to say, we need to take a stand. We need to delineate ourselves from the Democratic Party. And we are not going to send another $95 billion overseas while we're telling our constituents who are small business owners that we can't give you any funding because, well, that's going to increase inflation. And yes, I'm one of those business owners that my local representative told me we can't do anything to help you because, well, we're worried about inflation. Meanwhile, he's voted every single time to send well over $1 trillion overseas. This was their chance, Bill. They could have, honestly, I believe they would have steamrolled the election had they come together and said, we are not passing this budget, and held firm. And in fact, I think we're going to look back in, what is it, roughly 6 months till the election now? You're going to look back and you're going to go, we blew it. We snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
167 days.
You even have the days, okay. And on that note, send us to break, Bill.
It's time for Reclaiming America to take a break and lick our wounds in some cases. And come back to our last closing section for the year, for the week. Anyway, see you soon.
See you in a couple minutes.
Here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to Reclaiming America. We're in our downhill slide for the last segment.
Downhill slide is a good way to put it.
And here's where we're going to topics that pop into our heads. So we're going to start with what popped into Dan's head. Notice he keeps the head things on so that it doesn't fall out.
Yeah, really. Although it keeps the shine down, too. So I don't know if you saw this in the news, Bill. There was a little blurb that came out in the news. Have you ever heard of AstraZeneca?
Well, I might have.
Yeah, huge pharmaceutical company. And by the way, to all the YouTube people that are probably going to flag us for this episode, because now we're daring to talk about that thing that no one's allowed to talk about, which is that COVID-19 thing that happened a couple of years back. So for those that don't know, AstraZeneca was the primary pharmaceutical company to produce the vaccine for Europe and the UK, which they always differentiate them, but I guess with Brexit, they're not part of the Europe anymore. But anyway, they never got approved in the U.S., but they probably would have been, from what I've read, except for the fact that Moderna and Pfizer had the market cornered. But anyway, a few issues have come about due to potentially, let me phrase this right, potentially due to the vaccine, and it's ended up in court over in the UK. And earlier this week, and YouTube, this is from Pharmaceutical Technologies Report. This is not me saying it. I'm going to quote their article. AstraZeneca has maintained that while the vaccine may, in quotes, very rare cases, cause TTS, and no, I'm not going to try and say it, what it means, the causal mechanism for the effect remains unknown. AstraZeneca has been embroiled in a class action lawsuit for its COVID-19 vaccine, admitting the vaccine may cause incidences of thrombosis with, I'm not trying to say it. And then just in a nutshell, a total of 51 cases have been filed in the High Court, meaning in Britain, by victims and their families. That's what the lawsuit's about. Under that lawsuit, AstraZeneca has admitted in court that there may be a connection. And that gets me to where I want to go with this. And, I am saying this as someone who had a YouTube channel banned in 2021 when our then president, what was his name then? Oh, right, Joseph Biden. And by the way, the video is still available and up on YouTube, publicly stated that if you got the COVID-19 vaccine, you could not get COVID and you could not pass it on to others. That's out there. It is visible. I was flagged for spreading medical misinformation. Well, turns out I was right. And Mr. Biden was wrong.
Being as that is.
What's that?
You were right, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking, right? But my point with where I really want to go with this is, at least in England, they have a remedy. They can take AstraZeneca to court. Guess what? If they were to find this same scenario in the U.S. with Moderna and Pfizer, we can't sue them because a certain Congress gave them blanket immunity.
Which Congress would that be?
That would be the one that you voted for, Bill. The one run by, you guessed it, the Republican Party.
Isn't that the same Congress that with this total immunity, they gave these guys, they've actually set themselves up for this crap? There's no doubt about it. The fact of the matter is, too many people were saying that these shots were not good for people. They were using
and they were banned for doing so.
Yes, they were. And no one has come back and said they were right.
Well, I will be. We have to be fair. YouTube has loosened their restrictions. We'll call it. But I reached out to them and I said, everything that you banned me for, every word I said has proven to be true. All right. Why? And they will not give me my account back. There are, and I'm a nobody. Relatively speaking, I'm a nobody. There were prominent cardiologists,
Yes.
prominent immunologists at every level saying, can we just take a pause here and realize there may be some risks? And here's what they might be. They were banned for saying that.
Yeah.
And nothing has been done to retract any of the what was real misinformation. And Congress has given them blanket immunity. They can never be held accountable for it. And I will tell you, I know of many people that are wondering why there's a sudden spike in heart issues in young men in particular, which is mirroring what AstraZeneca is in court for.
Yes, and you start looking at the fact that many of these men that are having these heart attacks are athletes in some of the best shape they've ever been in. We're not
Yes.
talking about an overweight guy that sits there eating his Cheetos. We're talking about athletes who have trained hard and long. And it seems to me that the number of them that are just suddenly having a heart attack and passing on is excessive for what we've ever seen.
And all I'm saying, take the politics out of it. Look at it as a human issue. Can we at least acknowledge that it's worth studying and talking about? Can we get Congress to say, you know what, that immunity, we need to revoke it so that we can see the records? And by we, I mean the people, because you can't even subpoena the records right now because you can't take them to court. It's all speculation. I will tell you right now, we don't know. We don't know one way or the other, but we're never going to know if we can't at least address it. So it ain't going to change because you and I both know how much pharmaceutical companies donate to politicians, and the media is never going to say anything about it because 90% of the commercials you see on media, who's paying for them? If I,
Yeah, beyond the media fell in lockstep with the parties when they came out with these things are safe, et cetera, et cetera. And they've never been one to go back and say they were wrong.
well, it's not just that, Bill. They won't because they don't want to lose the funding. When you have, I mean, if I have to hear about one more pill that's available every time I turn on TV that has anal leakage as a side effect, why are we even allowing? Here's a good point. Now you got me on my soapbox. Remember how we banned cigarette commercials? Shouldn't
Yeah,
we
I
be
do.
banning drug commercials? Because, like, I saw one for something last night, and I'm sitting there going, why are you advertising that to me? Shouldn't advertise it to the doctors? Sure. Who writes it's a prescription drug. What they're counting on is me going to my doctor saying, I want that pill.
Yep.
Okay. You're going to argue that don't have the medical knowledge to speak about things, but you want me to get my doctor to write me a prescription for a pill I don't need. And there are a lot of doctors that will
People
because,
convince you that you do need it.
like a hair replacement, for example. You
Oh,
know.
well.
But yeah, it's just
And I would give you, there are people I know that are going overseas on trips and, they're buying these new kits that you can buy for $170 that will you take all these pills and they will guarantee that you will not get sick or will limit the ability to get sick when you're traveling. And no one knows exactly the effect those things are going to be either. But,
anyway.
another point. Can I move this a little bit in a different
You're right.
direction?
Now, I'm done. So go.
I think we should talk about the Republican ability to get vice president picked and how a certain governor has probably taken herself out of the running for being the number two person on the slot
The,
for the vice presidency of the United States.
and I want to make a note that this is the person that Bill pretty much guaranteed was going to be the VP.
Well, I did, but some people shoot themselves in the foot, other people shoot themselves in the dog's head.
And yeah. What? So for those that don't know, we're talking about Christy Nome, who she denies, by the way, that at first she denied. I saw different reports. At first she denied it, and then she said, "Well, I did do it, but it was done for humane reasons." Christy, just admit you did it and apologize and move on. But no, she doubled down on it. What was she thinking in an election? I mean, she probably was. I mean, we joke about how you guaranteed it, but she
She
probably
had a
was the VP.
15-month-old or so dog that she was taking out that was basically, according to her, not trainable, was not following direction, was aggressive to other people, and she tried to take him on a trip and see if she could get him trained, at least do something like that. At some point, she decided that it just wasn't going to work, and then the best solution was to send that dog to doggy heaven.
And I will tell you this, Bill. Full disclosure: my wife has a friend that ran into a very similar scenario. It was a young dog though; it was like 6 months old. They adopted it. The dog just was not right. Let's just go with that. They didn't shoot the dog. They took it to the vet, and the vet humanely euthanized the dog because the dog bit multiple people, right?
No,
But not Christy. Oh no, because that's what you should have done. Oh no, she takes it out back and shoots it.
no, she didn't take it out back. She was on a hunting trip.
You know what I mean. I'm just.
But, but the other thing, just to make matters worse for poor Christie, she's got this new book that was going to help her get into the White House, or at least get into the #2 house, which is where she is right now. But
Well played, sir. Well played on that one.
opt in. But she also made a statement in her book, or several statements in her book, that while she was in the U.S. House of Representatives, I believe for 4 terms, she was on the U.S. House Services Committee, and she went and she met with President Kim Jong-un and had personal conversation with him, among other things. The fact of the matter was she did go to South Korea, never met with him, and President Kim is actually called Chairman Kim. So she's got another round incoming that's just she just brought on herself.
It's just, I think we're pretty safe in saying, pretty slim chance now she's going to be the VP. Although you never know with Trump, you don't know.
That's true. Yeah, but the word out there is that they're trying to remake DeSantis, as one of the options. I think he's listening.
Well, I mean, who else do they we talked about Tim Scott in the past. He seems to have faded.
He has.
We've talked about Tulsi, who, I wholeheartedly would join. I would actually vote for a Republican then. That ain't going to happen. I think that's fair to say, right? Although she's
now,
still playing the cards right. I mean,
if Tulsi gets the nomination, then you might have to vote for all Republicans in the House to make sure that she gets elected.
Yeah, no, I ain't have no way. No way.
I thought I'd try.
No. I mean, realistically, though, she's probably about much chance as Noam does. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah, I would agree, because you also the Swami out there from the coast.
He shot himself in the foot a couple of times.
But he shot a lot meeting at Trump meeting and he's visibly.
Yeah. I just, 6 months ago when we were talking about this, we're like, wow, they got a strong bench for VP. They got a lot to choose from. Here we are in May, 6 months out from the election, and we don't have a clue who it's going to be. And that bench that looked strong is suddenly not looking so strong.
Is the case of snaring victory or defeat from the jaws of victory?
Yeah. I mean, I like DeSantis. I like his policies. I think he's done beyond outstanding with Florida. His election campaign, hands down, the worst I think I've ever seen in my lifetime, with the exception of Walter Mondale. And the fact that we're putting those two names in the same bucket tells you something, right? I mean, if you were going to say to me who would I want now, setting aside Tulsi because it's not going to happen, I would go with Tim Scott. I happen to like him a lot. I think he's.
I just don't think he comes across strong enough. I think what they're also looking at is the possibility that Trump's older. He may not make it the whole tour.
Yes.
He might end up being convicted of something which puts him out of it until they get it solved. And they need a #2 that is capable of becoming a #1 and carrying on the policies that are basically like his. So of all those, I think DeSantis comes probably the highest one on that level.
I would agree with you there. I think that's a very fair point. I don't know how it would play nationally. Does he? He's an old white guy, right? I mean, we have to be honest about it. He's an old white guy. At least Tim Scott checks a couple boxes.
Got a surprise for you. Trump's an old white guy.
That's my point, right? You got two old white guys. They have to look at the optics. At least Tim Scott is black. And how sad is it that this is an accomplished man, brilliant man, really good record in the Senate, but the number one reason we would say he should be VP is because he's black. We're doing the same thing the Democrats did.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's not fair to Scott, right? He should be judged not on his skin color, but on who he is and what he's done. And he is eminently qualified, in my opinion.
What about Ted Cruz?
I'd love it. I would love it. I've heard Rubio's name tossed out.
I have too, but I don't think so.
Think that's viable.
I think he's looking at Cruz. If DeSantis moves up, you got a Rubio push there. But Cruz would be an interesting choice because he's a brilliant debater and a very, very bright man, and he's got a track record.
And for the record, I voted for Cruz in the primary in 2016. So I guess I have to say, yeah, I'd be all for that. I just don't know if he would take that position.
Look,
he's pretty powerful in the Senate, and I think he's gearing up for 28.
Bill, would you run for vice president of the United States? And I would go, let me think about it. Yes.
Nah, I don't know.
Especially when you're going in knowing you don't have to wait 8 years if you win. You only have to wait 4 to run as president. There is that possibility that you might move up earlier, God forbid, for whatever reasons.
Well put. You might be president in 25. I mean, forget 28. Yeah, I mean,
the ballot is cast.
Again, though, but I love Ted Cruz. I think he's brilliant.
An interesting question. Speaking of that, though, a little bit different. And again, I hope this doesn't happen. But what happens? July happens. The nomination goes through. Let's say Trump and DeSantis get the just for argument's sake, or Trump and Cruz. Okay. Between then and November, for whatever reason, Trump cannot run.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does the party move him up? Does the party get a chance to separate? Because the convention's over. And by August and September, the ballots are printed nationwide because they're getting done early.
Right.
Getting them out. So and I don't know that answer.
We should find that one out.
That's an interesting question because it just dawned on me. What would happen in that case? Again, God forbid.
Right.
But if it does happen, what happens then? Do they move him up? Do they leave it blank? Do they elect him? And then do they go to the 25th Amendment and pick somebody to come in? And they go that way to get a new VP? I mean, there's lots of things I just don't know.
Well, that could work in the other way, too, right? They nominate Biden. Biden gets to, let's say, October. I mean, the guy is 81 years old. He passes away, let's say, natural causes, mid-October. Who are they putting in? And what happens with all the ballots there, too? It's a legitimate question on both sides.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know. I'm going to have to ask that question.
You have the connections, my friend. So guess what? That's your homework assignment for the next show.
Right, but it won't be because the next show is we're going to be we've got a very special show we're taping next week.
Yes, we are. We have about a minute. Why don't you tell the fine folks listening in what that show is going to be about?
Greg and I have had the privilege of bringing on a man named Howie Franklin, who was this chief steward on Air Force One for 5 presidents. That's amazing. He's worked for 5 of them, knew them personally. He's actually got a book out on it. And he's going to give us some insights and talk about presidents as he knows them. It should be an interesting show. It's going to be a lot non-political as we usually do, but I think it's going to be worthwhile. And we have a big surprise coming up for you at the end of May, beginning in June. And we're not going to tell you what it is yet, but it's going to be worth just paying attention to see what we're up to.
We will be on the air next week, and then we're taking a couple of week break, right?
We could do 2 next week.
We'll see. But yeah, stay tuned because Bill has outdone himself. I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, wrap it up there, Gracie.
As always, people, we thank you for listening. We hope you'll come back next week. And Dan's going to tell you where we can find us.
on all the places you find podcasts. Next.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reclaiming America.
Have a great week. We'll see you next time.